Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites with Jeff Sherman along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. A lot on the agenda today in our podcast, weekly podcast. But I know we agreed to start with a phenomenon, and that might be overly used from time to time. But do you agree with me, Dr. Lopkin, that this is a political phenomenon, what is going on with the Democratic Party? Would you agree with that? And then give some of your insights, please.
It is a phenomenon. It's not an unheard of phenomenon. We saw the same thing happen to the Democrats back in 1980. We also saw the same thing happen to the Republicans during the Obama administration. It is a complete meltdown, and they have lost touch with the people. They are doubling down on the narrative that caused them to lose the election. And they realize, at least some of them realize this. We talked about Dean last week, and James Carville have both come out. Now there's a couple more Democrats who've all come out saying, we need to stop this. We need to work with Trump. And the bulk of the party seems to have no interest in that. They are staging protests to fake outrage. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. And what's truly amazing is that they have not actually complained about a single issue.
Well, how about Joaquin Jeffries mentioning Medicare?
Well,
isn't that an issue?
It's an issue, but it's a non-existent issue. He was yelling, he was yelling about the framework that the House passed for the upcoming budget, that they were going to cut Medicare and cut Medicaid, except the framework didn't mention any cuts to any of those programs, not to Social Security, not to Medicare, and not to Medicaid. And this is actually something, my wife mentioned this, my wife is turning 60, and she remembers the Democrats yelling that the Republicans were going to cut Medicare and Medicaid 50 years ago, and it never happens. They have not adapted to the new voters.
Well, let me interject one thing. I agree with you that every party, the Republicans, had their time, a long time in the desert. You could actually say, I know there was Eisenhower, I get it, but they were in the desert, even especially congressionally, from FDR on. I know, obviously, with Eisenhower and whatever. Um, but I think the difference, to get more like a recent historical reference, yeah, the Democrats were in the woods after Reagan, but they weren't the Meshuggah party. For those of
No.
you who have not, now they're clinically insane. So there is a difference, and I want you to count. But it's a real difference. It's not a joke. Okay, that you can resurrect yourself from being, let's say, instead of favoring, 20% tax rates, you're in favor of 25. Okay, you're for, maybe more affirmative action. Okay, but men and boy in girls' bathrooms, DE. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. I don't know. You're the mastermind. How do you resurrect yourself? And there's no players to do that. The shining star of the Democratic Party, the one they're looking at as their savior, is Chris Murphy, who just voted against, by the way, aid for Israel, led by the self-hating Jew Bernie Sanders. But anyway, he's a savior,
Yeah,
not exactly the Messiah.
no, that is a major problem that the Democrats have right now. And you would have thought, having lost both houses and the White House, and of course, they have no control over the Supreme Court and the judiciary now. You would have thought they would have a come to Jesus moment. And there have been certain people. Um, again, we keep going back to Dean, but he has actually said, get the DNC out of Washington, get them talking to the voters around the country, because they are very clearly out of touch. But they seem to be absolutely determined to stay in their echo chamber. There are all of these Doge protests that where you've got Democrats yelling at the top of their lungs. They're all being held in Washington D.C. None of them are out in the rest of the country. They are doubling down on the woke ideas that got them kicked out of office. And they don't seem to realize that the voters have abandoned this. And there was a story that the Hollywood Reporter did where some of these studios are starting to back away from DEI and starting to back away from the woke, and Hollywood Reporter said, because they don't want to end up in the crosshairs of the Trump administration. But that's not actually where the crosshairs are coming from. They're coming from the shareholders. They're coming from regular Americans who have had it. And the Democrats just don't seem to want to accept the new reality.
No, they don't. By the way, the head of Disney, which is, you talk about incompetency on steroids. I think she was there for like almost 20 years, is stepping down. But I will give you another analogy. And, like we just talked about, minutes ago, if you're driving on the street, right, on the road, and you barely cross the yellow divide, easily resurrected, correct, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes.
But if you're driving into the other lane's breakdown lane, not so easy. And that's my analogy of the Democratic Party. They are so out to the left. They're so scared of the far left. I won't call them progressives. I think that's far too kind. And even who's leading the charge now? In front of using the F bombs, and I mean, unhinged, even like Pocahontas, not having a civil like, and people see this in Peoria, Montana. They go, these people are unhinged, screaming. All these appointment hearings, they look like idiots.
Yeah, the Democrats did not look good during the cabinet appointment hearings at all. And I mean, not only did they seem, angry and they're attacking, but they also seemed completely unprepared
There you
for the
go.
hearing, which I think, quite frankly, is worse. But what's really sad is that, again, they're not paying attention to what's really going on. And I think Greg Gutfeld on Fox actually said it best. The big problem is the Democrats are determined to play left versus right. But the Trump administration isn't playing left versus right. They're playing insiders versus outsiders. And the Democrats don't have any outsiders. It's like they can't even understand the game. And while
Whoa,
the
whoa, whoa,
Trump
whoa, 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 whoa! Before you go on, that is an amazing point. You're right. If I just transported you into you're a great baseball player or football, and all of a sudden you're playing cricket, probably not going to go too well. And I think you're right. They become. This was years ago. I heard a couple of years ago. It was the Republicans that were the party of the man. It's now the Democrats. They're the party of the man.
Yes, the Democrats have become the party of the status quo. They've always been the party
And the
of big
powers to be.
government. Yes, and the powers to be. But you had said something a little while ago about them being afraid of the radical left. I don't even think it's a matter of fear at this point.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I think they're so ingrained in their echo chamber with CNN, with MSNBC, with the BBC, with all of these media outlets
NPR.
that we now know were getting money from USAID, that the Democrats kept funding them, that they're not even aware that the other side exists. They don't know what is going on. They actually think that the radical left is how the country thinks, because this is what their media is telling them. This is what their pollsters, like the Harris pollsters and the Biden pollsters, were telling them, because they're not talking to Americans. They're just talking inside the Beltway.
I would agree with you 1,000%. But you as a business consultant, and I saw this in an editorial the other day, isn't it perplexing? I mean, I think this is a metaphor. How do you like this for the Democratic Party? CNN, MSNBC, even though there's money at stake, are so hooked on the drug of leftist ideology, they can't help themselves, even when their own future is in jeopardy. Isn't that not correct? Because I'm aghast that, MSNBC, that's like, people watch that in mental hospitals. But CNN, you think, okay, shift, pivot. No, it's the same shit. It's unbelievable. I mean, and if you look at even MSNBC's ratings before you go on, it's real. Like, Joey Reid got fired, right? Joy Reid. And I thought it was a joke. There's like knitting with Aunt Nancy on cable X. 80,000 in key demographics. Are you out of your mind? The Yule log gets 200.
The problem with the media companies, with CNN, with MSNBC, is that they've been preaching to the left for so long that for the last, I'd say probably decade, they've been preaching to the left longer than that. But for the last decade or so, they've only been hiring diehard leftists.
Yep.
So in order for them to return to the center and actually return to profitability and become credible again, they literally have to fire everybody.
Everyone.
And that's something that is almost impossible to do, because you can't get rid of everybody unless you've got a whole bunch of new people ready to come in. And those people aren't really out there.
No, well, you're going into a dead industry. You could fire everyone at the Hartford Courant or whatever, the Indianapolis Examiner. And yeah, great. No one's going to go into newspapers. Genius. It's a dying. That's on. My point is, cable news is like terrestrial news was 20 years ago. It's pretty much game over. The landscape's changed. You know what the average age of people that watch CNN are? It's like welcome to the nursing home.
See, but that's actually what is going on. CNN just announced a little while ago, we talked about it a few weeks ago, a major overhaul in their programming. Well, the reason they were doing this, they don't even care about the ratings anymore. They know nobody's watching them. They also know that people are getting more and more news from the streaming channels, and that's where CNN is now focusing. They've got an entire CNN digital channel that you can get through Max, which is also owned by Time Warner or Warner Discovery. They changed owners so many times it's hard to keep up. But they're at least saying, you know what? This is dead. We're moving on. MSNBC is stuck. They've got
Oh
nowhere
no!
to go.
Wait, before you go on, they're also more than stuck because they don't have Big Brother helping. They don't have Comcast. They will not have Comcast soon.
Right. No, Comcast is spinning them off.
Yeah.
And Comcast is actually taking steps to bring the news back to some credibility. It was why Joy Reid was fired. It's why Lester Holt has been removed from NBC Nightly News, or he will be leaving in August, I think it is. They didn't fire him. They're moving him over to Dateline. But
oh yeah, that's like you were VP of Sales and Marketing, and now you're Regional Manager of Central Connecticut. Sales
right.
and distribution. No, I don't think so. And by the way, just to clue you in, he was always on Dateline. So now he's going to be, instead of two episodes,
but that's
he'll be
right.
on 4.
No, that's going to be his full-time job now, though. That's what
what I'm saying. He'll go from 2 episodes to 4.
Right.
Yikes! Let's have a party. But what do you think the bigger picture though? Joy Reid having her mental breakdown. Rachel Maddow. You mentioned Lester Holt. You look at Keith Olbermann. I think this guy's really kind of nuts. He's been fired from every job since MSN, since ESPN. But isn't it like the dying howls of? They're just dying howls of a dead media. They're not going graciously into the night.
Oh no, they're not going gracefully into the good night. They are fighting it tooth and nail, and I mean, but what you're seeing now, especially with Joy Reid, if you take a look at social media, you'll see the DEI pundits yelling, "This is why we have to protect DEI because Joy Reid was just fired." It's like, no, this is actually why you need to get rid of DEI because she was a complete failure. And the only reason to keep her on was DEI. She was a black woman. It looked bad to get rid of her. It was anti-DEI. So they kept her despite the fact that she kept failing over and over again. And it's not just companies. The same thing just happened at the Pentagon. Trump replaced the head of the Joint Chiefs, and people were yelling, "Well, he's black. This is why we need DEI. His replacement isn't as qualified as he is." You know what? I don't know the qualifications of his replacement. He may not be as qualified, but I know this about his replacement: he wasn't responsible for the Afghanistan withdrawal.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. And also, instead of instead of worrying about things he should have been, he was focused and fixated on DEI and diversity, and that's where it leads you to Afghanistan. Very good job. I do think it's going to get increasingly interesting. It'll be increasingly enjoyable for me to watch because I have a twisted sense of humor. And I think the next one that's on the firing line is the great one, Rachel Maddow.
I don't
She
know that
ditched her own network.
I don't know. I don't know that they're going to fire her. They've already announced that starting in April, she will be going back to doing her show just 1 day a week.
Well, kind of firing to me. But anyway, yeah, the relevancy. I mean, when you go to 80,000, let's just put this in a
Yes.
nutshell, and we move on. 80,000. I mean, again, there's like reruns of I don't know the Johnny Quest that get that. It's ridiculous. But we also look at um, the whole woke agenda doesn't seem to quit. You looked at the Oscars again, this is in the whole thesis of not learning your lesson. So no one watches this shit, Oscars, Grammys, for various reasons. Some of it's even not their fault. The decentralization of media, other factors. But okay, so you're hurting for ratings. What do? You have everyone wear a pro Gaza pin. Hmm
Yeah,
It
it
makes
has
sense to
been
me.
amazing. You had Jane Fonda at
Oh
I think it
God,
was the SAG Awards. You had Kamala
no pun
Harris.
intended. No
Right.
pun intended. Go ahead.
You had Kamala Harris at the NAACP Image Awards. Um,
Oh, wait a second.
the,
With a couple too many. Wait. You just can't move on from that. Um, I, I think she
well,
should
what,
be shut off at the bar. That
well,
was, again. If you told you're the doctor. If you could tell me what the hell she was talking about, you truly do deserve your title as the
oh,
doctor.
I
I have
have
no effing idea.
I have
I
no
couldn't
idea
take. If you
what
put
she
a
was
gun to my
actually
head.
saying, but I mean, the NAACP Awards. Um, this was a disaster, and it had nothing to do with the organization or the presentation itself. Aside from Harris's, you'll notice that
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I think it was incredibly poor taste, and I don't know how many people caught this. But Harris actually used the flames, the phrase, you can see the flames. Okay. This was in such poor taste because the NAACP.
Was it in L.A.?
Not only was it in Pasadena, it was in the Pasadena Coliseum. The Pasadena Coliseum was being used as a shelter for the people who lost their homes, and they threw the victims of the wildfires out because
Oh my God.
because they had to tape the NAACP Image Awards and episodes of America's Got Talent.
Well, that shows you, the true heart of liberalism. We've talked about that before. When they're useful idiots. They love you. When you're no longer of use to them, why don't you step outside for a couple of days while we shoot some meaningless bullshit?
Right.
Yes, I would agree.
Meanwhile, while they're throwing the victims of the wildfires out of their shelter, you've got Jane Fonda yelling that what woke means is that you actually give a damn about people. Well, you just disproved that.
And by the way, this is a billion years ago. What she did in North Vietnam, any real country would have her in prison for treason. That's no joke.
No,
That's no joke. You're talking about manning an anti-aircraft. Go ahead.
Yeah, I still have not forgiven her for that. And there's a lot of people who had family members that served in Vietnam, that served, veterans from the Vietnam era. We have not forgotten and we have not forgiven.
No, you have an elitist piece of shit that grew up in Hollywood, probably graduated, the 8th grade? I have no friggin' idea. And yeah, you can protest at home. Fine. Everyone has a right for free speech. But you go over, it's coddling the enemy. It's disgusting. And she's so she's got more plastic surgery than Reynolds wrap as well. I thought there was a plastic shortage. My God, she looks like she's 25.
Well,
She smiles. It's probably a sonic boom. It's brutal.
She's no
go ahead.
longer biodegradable.
Yeah. Well, everyone wants to stay on forever. She's
Yeah.
accomplished that. But it's also interesting. You talk about the tide of things changing. The Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions, 2017. 18 years ago. Trump extended an invitation to go to the White House. They refused, and that was really cool. I didn't think it was cool, but in the press and most people, yeah. They enthusiastically accept. He didn't officially do it, but he's going to. We already talked about that off air, but the invitation's coming. Why do I bring it up? Not just because I'm an Eagles fan. It's because the atmosphere, the environment is 180 degrees of what it used to be.
It really
In other
is.
words, hold on real quick. In other words, if they didn't show up, it's not only not cool, they'd be chastised for not doing it. It would hurt the franchise. How do you like that?
Yeah, it really has changed. In the case of the Eagles, first of all, Trump won Philadelphia. So for the Eagles to say, oh, we're not going, you've just dissed most of your fan base. On top of that, Trump was actually at the game, and you had the fans cheering for him. But I think the biggest indication of how things have changed, yesterday, they had the first White House tour of the year, and Trump actually went out to greet them and say hello. And first of all, Biden never, if he saw one of the White House tours, it was by accident. Yeah, he'd
run for the hills.
Right. He never interacted with anybody. But Trump made some comments, said hello. As he was walking away, the entire crowd started chanting, USA, USA. We have not seen that for 4 years.
No, wait. I have to ask you this. Flashback to 2017. That same situation happened. I think people would have they wouldn't have insulted him. They might have had some insults, but there'd be no USA. No way. No way.
No, because they had the entire country conned at that point. He's evil, he's Hitler, and by the way, every Republican presidential candidate in my lifetime has apparently been Hitler. If you take a look at the campaigns, this is their go-to. Oh, he's Hitler, he's a dictator. And they haven't changed it. The big difference is that when Biden self-destructed during the debate and they tried to cover for him, and suddenly the American people realized, wait a minute, they've been lying about his condition for years. It broke the dam. Suddenly they realized, wait a minute, they have been lying to us and we're not going to take it anymore. And this is why they made some major changes. The American people stopped watching CNN and MSNBC. They started listening to podcasts. They started getting more information online from reliable sources, not just social media. And that's why right now there's a court case. I'm not sure where it stands because it looked like the Associated Press got their asses handed to them by the judge yesterday. But the Associated Press is fighting that they're not being let into the Oval Office anymore. And the reason for this is that the Trump White House is completely changing the way they deal with media. They're inviting more bloggers in. They're inviting more podcasters in because that's where people are getting their news.
Can I interject one thing on that? I agree with you 100%, but it also isn't it reflective of, again, years ago, a billion years ago, it was the Democrats that were the hipsters. They knew the latest thing. They're the dinosaurs. You have Sanders, it's like a geriatric community. Pocahontas, By the way, those two, including Murphy, voted to. It was sponsored by Sanders to stop aid to Israel, and also with Chris Murphy, the rising star of the Democrats. But isn't it really true that they're the ones that you look at here? I've seen hearings, congressional hearings, and it's Republicans, yes there are, but a lot of Democrats, these geriatrics, like they're asking questions, trying to interrogate, just like they did at the confirmation hearings. And let's see, it's on social media. They're like, and if I dial a number, you're like, what? What are you talking about? And when it beeps, when the U.S. robotics thing goes beep beep beep, does that mean I'm connected? It's like, oh my God. But I think it's a major problem. They're not learning their lesson. But there are repercussions. You have pencil neck. Okay, you have a pencil neck, and you also have James Comey now in the crosshairs, and it's serious. Talk about that.
Yeah, Adam Schiff, you were referring to his pencil neck, which, quite frankly, I don't think is a great nickname because it could describe so many of the Democrats. But
that's true.
Yes, Adam Schiff's actions during the first Trump administration are now being investigated by the Justice Department because he kept claiming he had absolute proof that Donald Trump was a Russian collaborator. And their own investigation, the special counsel, blew that out of the water. And yet, even after the special counsel report came out, he kept going on television saying, no, we haven't, we've proven it. And so they're looking into him. They're now looking into James Comey because before Trump was president, the FBI was involved in what they call a honeypot scheme, sending people into his campaign to try to entrap him. They failed, but to do this to a presidential candidate is unconstitutional.
Comey is shitting bricks, okay? Schiff, I don't know what he'll have, it'll probably go away, but Comey's in real trouble. It's a perversion, they call it. And he lied under oath, by the way.
Yes, he lied under oath, which, that's perjury right there. And, he wasn't pardoned by Biden, so he's got nothing to fall back on. But what you're seeing now.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Is we have a Justice Department. Pam Bondi. We have an FBI Dan Bongino was just appointed deputy director.
And he's a guy, if you're Schiff, he has this editorial and videos of Bongino. He's not a big fan of Shifty Schiff.
These are folks who have come in with one mission and one mission only: to depoliticize the Justice Department, FBI, and the federal government. And that's what they're going to do. And the left is going to scream, oh, it's all a vendetta. They're coming after the Democrats. No, they are going after the people who are criminally liable for turning government agencies into weapons.
100%. And you also talk about bitching and moaning and screaming, wailing. They're also wailing on the whole Department of Government Efficiency. And it's really very interesting because polls, even very left-leaning polls, 80% of the country is in favor of it, okay? It's really kind of actually hysterical. And then you have basically the Democrats railing against when Elon Musk had that email, tell me 3 things that you've done in the last week. That's almost boilerplate for when consultants come in for reorganization. That's nothing new. That's been around since like the 80s. Hello?
This is the problem with the status quo and the government as a whole, both parties, quite frankly. They have no idea how things work in the real world.
Yes.
Everything Dodge has been doing has been standard operating procedure in the private sector. And this email, send us 5 things. This is not meant. The left went, well, they're checking up, they're looking over people's shoulders. This actually wasn't meant to look over people's shoulders. What their first intention was, they want to see what everybody's doing. But the first thing was to see how many emails go unanswered, because the email address is no longer in use by anybody in employ there, because the person has, doesn't check their emails anymore and isn't doing their job. Guess what? This is what you want to get rid of. The dead emails. Guess what? Server space costs money. And if it's not being used and people, we need to delete it to save money. If people aren't doing their jobs, we need to delete them and save money. And they go, but people are losing their jobs. How can you be so uncaring? Funny, I didn't hear one of these people eliciting any sympathy when the folks working on the Keystone Pipeline lost their jobs because Biden pulled the plug.
Nope, and they would find green jobs. Yeah, green, maybe mowing lawns. How do you like that?
Which
At
still
minimum wage?
which still have not appeared.
There you go. Yeah, they'll never will. And also, it's really funny. You talk about Biden. The border was obviously out of control. You'd have to be on acid not to think so. But remember, he was saying that you can't just do this with an executive order. You need Congress. Well, then why is border crossings about 0? I mean, when you really boil it down.
Border crossings since Trump took office are down 97%. And Biden kept saying, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I need Congress to act. Congress still hasn't acted, and yet we solved the problem. This just goes to show the incompetence of Biden. And we knew this. I mean, we knew he was a mental defective. But
okay, wait. Before you go on, is his relevancy fading faster than the speed of sound? I've never seen, even Jimmy Carter, I was around then. Yeah, he faded off into the sunset, but whoa, this guy is nowhere to be seen.
Well, Jimmy Carter didn't fade into the sunset, though.
No, I'm saying initially. No, before he did Habitat.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm saying the first year, whatever. I've never, nothing, just pin drops. I don't think anyone misses the guy, including Democrats.
No, nobody.
He will be a footnote in history.
Nobody misses him. Nobody will ever miss him. But take a look at the difference in just a month. Okay, let's take a look. One of the big achievements of the Biden administration was the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act was passed 2 years ago, possibly 3 already. And there's work being done on a factory, but we haven't seen any benefits from this. In the meanwhile, under the CHIPS Act, the government shelled out billions of dollars to private companies that we haven't seen any benefit from. Fast forward to the Trump.
Wait, before you even go on, throwing money, which is what they like to do, with no game plan. Just here's the money. I mean, sometimes you can't even blame the companies. Like, here's $10 billion, and there's no, you got to do this, that, and the other, or let me see your strategic plan. No, none of that. Just here's the money. Show me the money. There you go.
Well, now Trump has announced Project Stargate, which is his AI project. Work has already begun on factories in Texas. Hasn't even been in office a month yet. Not a dime of government money is going to this. It's being funded $500 billion from Apple. Another 500 billion from Oracle, SoftBank. The big difference, Biden was spending taxpayer money and got nothing for it, where Trump is having corporations foot the bill to make America great again.
Okay, but that doesn't really shock me at all because Democrats, 99% of them, never worked in the privates. They don't know the private. They don't trust everything's big government. So that doesn't really surprise me. But what does surprise me, you talk about the month that Trump's been in office. Look at even the global scene. I think Rubio's become a superstar, but there's been more than just rumblings of a peace deal in Ukraine.
Yes, there is.
And rare minerals.
Yes, there has been a lot of talk. Representatives of the Trump administration have met with Russian representatives. They are actually willing to talk. And, I find it amazing how liberals are yelling, you can't talk with Russia. They're evil. You can't talk. And it's funny because back in October, that was what they were saying about Trump. But you can't get somebody to come to the negotiation table if all you're doing is insulting them. You actually have to deal with them as people. You don't have to like them or agree with them.
Well, is that really surprising as well? Because if you're a woke operative, which is what the Democrats are, to talk to anyone you have to like. Why would you talk to anyone you don't like? And the other thing about it is, during the Vietnam War, Kissinger, others, well, Henry Kissinger in particular, talked to the North Vietnamese. What do you think? They were best buddies? Right. How do you not talk to someone? And the interesting part of it is, I agree with Tulsi Gabbard, is the Democratic Party is the party of war. Their game plan was extremely dangerous in Ukraine. Just throw money, just barrels of money with no game plan. Sounds reminiscent of Vietnam that we lost, by the way.
I was about to say, it is the same game plan they used in Vietnam, and look how well it worked there.
Yeah, it works out real well. Their strategy in Vietnam, the geniuses, Haberstead said the book, The Best and the Brightest, was that we'll kill more of them than they'll kill of us. That's brilliant. Very brilliant. But it is a very interesting situation.
It is an interesting situation, but now you've got a major game changer on the international stage because you've got Zelensky is allegedly coming to the White House on Friday to sign a deal where the U.S. will get rare earth minerals from Ukraine. Russia has already said, as part of the peace deal, they are willing to sell aluminum to America. Now, of course, that's a big benefit for Russia because their economy has completely disintegrated because of this war. But it also changes the international picture because it makes Trump's tariffs more powerful. Canada was yelling, well, you can't put tariffs on us. We'll withhold our aluminum. Well, now we don't need them. You've got Europe scattering because now Trump is saying, you know what? You need to pay your way. The United Kingdom has announced they are raising their defense spending, and they're going to keep raising it until they hit 3.5% of their economy. They've never hit 2% before. Germany is yelling, we need to have an EU military to protect ourselves because Trump doesn't care what happens to us. And the Trump administration responded, it's not that we don't care what happens to you, but how is it fair for us to be footing the bill for your defense?
Actually, Joel, my little humble opinion, I'm not that big of a fan of NATO. How do you like it? I think it's agitated Russia needlessly, and I think they should have a European Union defense contract or agreement or union, because it's 80 years after World War II. Stand on your own 2 feet, and what we're doing is enabling their socialist agenda because they don't have to fend for themselves, just like Canada. David Hansen said this in World War II. Even though Canada's much smaller than us, they contributed over their share, and they had their own beachhead that they took. Now they couldn't take Rhode Island.
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody, the closest thing Canada has to a military is the NHL. It's,
yeah, there you go.
Forget the military, just throw the puck and have the hockey players go after the enemy, because that's.
But we enabled that to happen.
We did, but I'll be honest, I'm a little torn on the idea of the EU having their own defense. Because if you take a look at what happened to the European Union, economically, basically Germany captured all of Europe without firing a shot. I don't know that I want Germany in charge of a European military. Things don't tend not to go well when Germany gets a lot of military power.
We've seen 2 of the previews, haven't we? We've
Yes.
called World War I and II. There you go. Didn't end too well. But Dr. Lopkin, speaking of ending well, our podcasts are ending well. We're picking up listeners, and people can be a part of the show, can't they?
Yes, they can. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. Messages there. Let us know what you're thinking about. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. Tell us what you're thinking. What are your opinions on these issues? And what issues do you want us to discuss that we haven't gotten to? And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at the Carnivore Radio website at xvadio.com. The Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
I thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.